Hi, everybody. Okay, we're trying this again. I got on and had to get off real quick. So here we go. Welcome to BTT Thursday again. I'm excited to have Chris Ategeka, who's having issues joining. So forgive me as I keep looking on my phone. Um, we're trying to get him in. So please bear with me as I'm trying that. So, Chris, can you see me? And there is in the chat room. Hmm. All right. So, sorry, everybody. I'm just trying to help our guest get in. He's trying to figure it out, and as I am too, because I don't know what I'm doing when I'm trying to, I don't know how to do it on the other end. But today's Thursday, and we are going to be talking about turning pain into purpose. Um, he figured it out. Here he is. All right. So thanks everybody for hanging in there with us. I am going to bring Chris in. I see a few people are joining. All right, Chris, can you hear me? You cannot hear me.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
I do now.
Okay. Perfect. Sorry.
No, that's
Hello.
okay. We figured it out. Okay. I was panicking because I don't know how to do it on the other end. I don't know how it looks like.
It tells me here that I'm on the show. I feel important.
As you should.
Thank you.
So I'm so excited. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for
So
having me.
I will just do a quick, okay, everybody can both, they can hear us both. Perfect. Great. So I'll do a quick intro to what this is and how it began, and then what we're hoping we can do here together. So, Baton Talk. And for those who don't know, Chris is the reason I got up to have a TED Talk. So, this is the man who made it happen. I'm so excited and honored to be here. Um, and so, during that time, you walked me through what I need to think about as I'm preparing that talk, right? Like we all do talks in different spaces, but we don't take the time to figure out our audience. And one thing that you told me that got me to go the direction that I went was think as if you're talking to one person in that audience and make sure your talk can be applicable or relevant to a man, to a woman, to a child, to an older person, straight, gay. And that really, really changed even how I talk now in different spaces. So thank you for that. And so when I was thinking through that, the idea of the baton talk came to me, of the baton, of being passed down. Your parents give you stuff in terms of your DNA, your wisdom, and all of that. And you take off and you pass it on and on and on and on. And we all get that same experience, but not all of us get the chance or the luxury to think through what it is that we're passing on. And so, thinking through my own experience and my traumas, when I was preparing that talk, that's what got me thinking. What are some of the things that are relevant to my mother and to me, and now I'm about to pass on, but I never thought through what they all are. So that's where this idea came from. In mental health, people have all these different traumas that they never think through, or they've never healed, or didn't even consider how this is affecting each and every um, one decisions and relationships and how they show up in their workspaces because it manifests in all kinds of ways. So as we were having these discussions on Instagram, some people said, "Why don't you put it on YouTube? We don't have Instagram. That's for young people." And so, but then on YouTube, young people are saying, "Well, we can't watch it live. We will show up later and watch it." So I'm still trying to figure this thing out, but doing it anyway as I figure it out. So with all of that, we're going to be talking to people who now, since we moved to YouTube, most people watch it after the fact. And then Instagram was more of the live Q&A kind of experience. So we still have a few who show up live, but most show up after. All right. So now that we're here, I'm going to have us just take a few breaths, and mainly for me, because I've been running around like crazy and I feel like I'm bringing all this energy that I've been using. So we'll just take a second. If you are here with us, just feel your body in your chair, your feet on the ground, on the bed, wherever you are. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. If not, just kind of look softly on the ground or one object and just take one deep breath from your stomach. Just feel your stomach rising. Hold it and let it out real slow. Let's do two more of those to get us present. So another breath from your diaphragm. Hold and let it out as slow as you possibly can. On this last one, just come back to your body and be present. Let's forget all the to do lists, all the things that are still waiting on us, so we can be here to learn, to grow together, and heal together. So take one last breath with me. Take a deep breath, hold it, and exhale. Now you can open your eyes, and here we are. So, welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I usually start off with our quote of the day that matches what we're going to be talking about. And the one I found that spoke to me was by Mary Beth Eiler, which says, when we seek to find purpose in the pain, we have the opportunity to turn something hard into something good.
Mm,
Hmm.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so when I thought of that, you are the first person who popped in my head, in my mind, because you're this powerhouse. I didn't even pull up all your credentials, but Chris is inspiring thousands. You've been on all stages from World Economic Forum all the way to small ones like opportunity collaborations and TED Talks, and you will provide everybody with your website and all the ways they can get in touch. But you took your life that you have shared on one of your TED Talks that have been watched over a million people, inspiring. So I will stop and just let you share with us first your humble beginnings, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us. Who is Chris? How did you start off your journey?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tabitha. Uh,
Sure.
Thank you for having me. And um, the journey has been an interesting one. Um, it all started on July 10, 1984. That's when I was born. Um, and, I grew up in a small village in Uganda. And when I was born, and just the first few years of my life, I lost my parents early on. And when my parents passed, I kind of found myself in this, spiral of everything that is associated with extreme poverty,
Hmm.
diseases and lacking food and lacking this, that, and the other. But I'm not alone. I'm not any special. It's just
Hmm.
a very uh, typical poor person experience.
Hmm.
Um, and then I went through a lot of hardships, and for about a period of 8 years. And when I finished those 8 years of really, really hardships, because you can imagine the bottom of the bottom type of person with rugged shorts and holes in your pockets,
Hmm.
and shirt or not, house or roof on your head or not, very, very hard times. And then when I um, turned about 15, someone told me about an orphan program that just helps kids go to school, like a typical sponsorship program.
Hmm.
And I walked many miles, went over there, and I asked for support, and they sponsored me. Worked really hard, and won't bore you with too many details, but
No.
there were so many life events, a lot of luck, a lot of coincidences, a lot of some people call it God. There's a lot of energy that had to come to play to make it everything work out. But found myself at UC Berkeley Engineering School and finished undergrad and graduate school. And when I was done with education, I started a few companies. Um, and to the extent you would like to be in, for me to talk about any of that, I would be glad to. But start a few companies, and here we are. I'm on your channel.
Oh, please. I'm honored that you make time for me because you have a lot on your plate.
Thank you.
How old were you when you lost your parents?
The thing is, it's very hard to kind of put numbers to ages, and the way I've learned the American culture, the Western culture, if you say something and you kind of like misstate it, and you get found out that maybe it was like 2 months off, you could be considered to be deemed a liar.
Mm,
So I really try as much as I can to stay away from concrete numbers
okay. So
for that reason, because I was young, so I don't really remember how
right.
young.
You're in elementary years.
Yes,
In
yeah, or
elementary.
like before 10. So
Okay.
anywhere between between 6 and 8, 9 there. Because
Yeah.
even I didn't know what my birthday was, so that played a role too. But I eventually found out. That's a cool story too. Someday, I eventually found out my actual birthday.
Wow. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's incredible. Um, you're a young boy and you lose your parents. We know that's already you've the people who have been listening to these, we went through the ACEs, right? Adverse childhood. You've already checked off like three before you turn age 10. There's the poverty, there's being an orphan, and that lack of all the essentials, the basics that create the foundation and the trust for a child. So there's already trauma before you can even spell the word trauma. But you found resilience, or like you said, whatever name you put to it, you were determined to keep going, look for opportunities. Looking back now, hindsight, what do you think you're going to attribute that to? The even getting in school, right? Actually, let me step back a little bit. You come to the US. Now we're adding on another layer of being in a new country. Yes, Uganda is English speaking, but once we get to the US, there's this whole idea of accents. There's this whole idea of racism. There's this whole idea of, oh, now you're African, not even you get all of that. Can you get us to that stage? So now you're a younger adult. How was that for you?
I mean, I can spell it out. I use the word shifting fear or shifting danger.
Hmm.
Um,
Say more.
so when I was young, my concern was mostly about, do I have food today, or will I have food today, or will I have a place to put my head, right? And then I found a sponsor in America who was willing to pay for me to go to school. And then the fear shifted, and they're willing to pay for me, but also willing to support me get some food and get some shoes. Get like I got a pair of shoes when I was like 17. I got a bicycle. Like life is pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, but there, the fear shifted. It shifted from scarcity and survival to now fear of losing the opportunity and failing out of this opportunity and disappointing the person who's really betting on you. Um, and then from there, and make it to America, I go to school and go to engineering school. And Berkeley, I'm telling you, is not an easy school to power through. Not any major, but engineering, both undergrad and graduate school. Um, while I was going through that, it's the same fear playing in my head, like someone betted on you. They brought you to America. They're paying, astronomical amounts of money, and you gotta work. You gotta make. You don't need to disappoint. So the fear shifts, and then after that, I start my own companies. Now the fear shifts to success. Like I
Then I
need to
fail.
succeed. You're like you're not done. Now you have this fortune, you have a new world and have resources, you have access. You're not like fearing that now you're not going to have food, but now the fear is shifted to like I need really to succeed because there are so many people who are behind that I've left behind. They are like me, and now they're relying on me. So just like you, when you raise your head above water from our culture, everyone wants to hold on to you so they don't drown. So that
Oh,
is kind of like brought that other component of like being able to support your relatives and pull them out of poverty. And then the final component of fear is this: now we're America. I'm a black man in America. The racial tensions and all the race components that attach to that for being a black male in America. It's a whole component of fear. Um, so, anyways, you can look at fear and let it own you, or you figure out how to not let fear own you and use it as a stepping stone to kind of like move forward. So fear is such a very interesting phenomenon. Fear gets into your head and you're worried about things that may or may not happen, right? Sometimes, and you're always concerned about, like people like us who have experienced some of the pain. You really don't want to go back into that pain. So you have the fear of success, but also the fear of not pursuing your dreams too. And you're kind of like
yeah, it
always in the
is.
dance, always doing the dance. But anyways, I like to say negativity works 100% of the time. So I don't let negativity into my head. It's like having a tenant who is not paying rent. So I just stay positive.
I love that. Okay, there are three things you touched on that I want to really highlight because they've been coming in with our past lessons. The survival piece, right? You, I love how you've put that in terms of fear. So initially, it's fear of surviving in food and where am I going to sleep? And then you translate that when you step into a different space, you've turned that into fear of disappointment, disappointing others, those who have believed in you. And it's all of that, what it brings is this pressure and this, and then the farther you go, there is that pressure of not enoughness. What if I'm not enough? Then I'm going to go back to not having what to eat, right? It's especially in those initial stages. If I disappoint this sponsor, I'll go back. And then it's pushing you every day so you can prove to someone else that you're enough or that you are worthy of being invested in, right? And then I love how you said you're above those initial fears, but it keeps translating into your new space. And now and that analogy, I love analogies of everybody's holding on to you so they don't drown as you're trying to get above water. And so now I'm sure all of us who are immigrants have that experience of somebody always thinking you're not doing enough for them, right? Like, oh, I can't believe you only spent $100. I saw the kind of car you drive, or
I prayed for you. You don't remember me?
my mother's been praying for your whole family, whatever the reasons are. So then that trauma keeps translating and changing faces based on where you are. And so when you're not cognizant, which you are, um, you start thinking of it as something else, right? And then it
Yeah.
stops people from, and that's where you are going. That's where I want us to go next. People from either pursuing what they want to pursue because they're letting that fear, then you won't know that you failed, or they go in anyway because fear is always going to be there. So, how did you? Where you were going with your point, how did you not let that get in the way or that negativity you were talking about? How did you overcome?
Oh yeah. No. So again, like I said, if I'm to attribute anything I've ever done coming from where I came from to where I'm at, it goes to just one thing, and that is positive attitude. Positive attitude, even when the situation doesn't call for it. And it's a very powerful tool because when you apply or when you allow negativity to play in your head,
Mm-hmm.
there's no upside. It only brings you down. There's no upside to negativity.
Right.
And when you like, I'm not trying to downplay or kind of dismiss that those feelings are not there. The
Mm-hmm.
feelings are there. And the idea is you to look for a crack in that wall where you see a little light that's coming towards you and you move towards it. And
Mm.
you always try to
Towards the
find
light.
the light out of every darkness. You try to find the light and you walk towards the light. I remember when I was a street kid, and there would be like big concerts back home. You know, like they bring these big trucks, and there's like celebrity entertainers. Like some big company like Coca-Cola brings celebrity entertainers for a promotion of some sort. But you're a kid and you're very short. You can't see over people to actually see the people who are performing on the stage. So the trick is you get on the ground and you look in between people's feet and you see where the light is coming from. That's where the direction of the stage is. And you just crawl and you follow the light. Before you know it, you're in the front. So you just gotta follow the light.
Follow
Um,
the light. Perfect.
Follow the light. And you know, I really want to say, um, you know, and the thing that has helped me, and I think it's very very important for your listeners, is to understand the power of faith and hope
Mm.
and the definition of those two things.
How do you define
Um,
hope?
so a lot of people kind of have the word faith attached to religion, um, but to me, faith is something, some energy, any energy. Yes, religion could be one of those
Mm-hmm.
energies where you have a superpower, higher power you're believing in, but it could be nature, it could be something else, it could be some energy that's outside of you, it's larger than yourself. Faith is outward, okay? It's something you kind of reach out to when your system, your internal system, is kind of like, you know, losing footing. Okay, so faith is external positive energy, and it's always there. So it's confident, you're confident in faith, because when you have faith, you know whatever your worries are today, they're faint, they're pale compared to what the force, the superpower outside of you can do for you to fix that problem.
Mm.
That's faith. But hope, on the other hand, is positive attitude, and that comes from within. So hope comes from within, faith comes from outside. You need both. And the reason you need both is positive attitude will fail you at some point, especially when the pain is real and it's real time. You can be positive, but man, if you're getting stabbed, it's really hard to really pull that positivity. But if you have faith and you know you're going to get out of this, however big, however hard this problem is, you will find a space within you to find the hope. So you need both hope and faith to navigate the difficulties and complexities of life.
Wow. And I absolutely agree 100%. And I've been having these conversations with some of the people listening. Um, how do you, so I want to bring it to real life situation. Is there a time in your life where you can think back where everything about it was painful, you couldn't see your way out, and you used faith or hope? How you followed that light in real life? I loved that whole the going through. If you, what any situation either through your businesses or back in the day as you were thriving and surviving, where you knew or you have a tangible way in which you followed the light and got you through.
I mean, there's so many
I
many
know.
personal life examples,
Yeah.
but to me, like, I don't know, like, I've faced a lot of pain, okay, in so many different aspects, physical, mental pain. And you lose someone, like someone dies, you sit in the corner and you cry. And another person dies, you sit in the corner and you cry. And then it happens the third time, and the fourth time, and the fifth time. At some point, you run out of tears
Hmm.
because it's too painful to even cry. And then you start to figure out, okay, how can I cope? So, as a defense mechanism, to protect your emotions as a person, you try to figure out, okay, if and when another person dies, it's kind of like it's a it's a little removed for a lot of people in America,
Hmm.
who don't see dead bodies everywhere, or like they grew up the entire life and you get to 70 and you've never seen a dead person. And for us who come from different contexts, it's a regular occurrence, and you have to figure out how you deal with it. But yeah, no, I had to. My dad, when he passed on, he left me as the heir of the family as a child, and I have a bunch of other kids to take care of. And it's survival for the fittest. You either sit and cry or try to figure out how you're going to feed your siblings and survive. And it's different wavelength you're playing on.
Yeah. And for those who don't, maybe who don't know the context we're talking about, you know, I think I can confidently say all African
Most developing countries.
yeah, most developing. Well, one, when somebody dies, the body used to come in the home. That person is in the house. You all can see, pray around, stay with the body for a couple weeks or so in the household. So there is that idea of being part of the whole process, or seeing your person no longer alive. Um, and then the idea of the boy, the firstborn, it becomes the heir. So it doesn't matter how old, even if you had older sisters. And so that's another conversation on patriarchy. But in that time, so no matter what, the boy, the oldest, is in charge if the father passes away. So now you're already, you also are looking for somebody who's going to take care of you or to give you answers. But now that you're also given this whole responsibility. And so one of the things, your first, I don't know if it was your first, but it's the project that's how I got to know you the first time, that you were doing the nonprofit with the bikes.
Yes.
And that was directly connected to how you came out of that, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, how you started doing that project?
Yeah, no, so, I finished my engineering school, and when I was done, I was asking myself, where do I go from here? Do I start a company? Do I go work for some fancy company? I got a bunch of offers, but, you know, the one part I forgot to mention, and I graduated from Berkeley, I was the speaker. So imagine a stadium with thousands of people. And I mentioned a little project I had started to build ambulances, bike ambulances, um, for hospitals in Uganda. And just for context, for some people who kind of have a hard time visualizing what that would look like in America, when you have an emergency, you call 911. A bunch of macho dudes show up with a big truck and they take you to, or an ambulance, and they take you to the hospital. But in most of the developing countries, there's no such a thing as 911. Most people's lives and livelihoods, when they get an emergency, is put in, literally placed in the hands of the relatives, assuming they're around to carry you to the hospital.
Mhm.
So, having lost both my parents due to lack of access to healthcare was a huge component in my life. So I decided to start a company. And essentially, what we did is I used my mechanical engineering skill to turn regular bicycles into ambulances. It's essentially like it's a giant baby cart attached to the bicycle that can drag a full human being who is pregnant and gets to the hospital and have a baby. Um, so we did that, and then we upgraded and started making motorcycles, side carts and back carts that could take people to the hospital. And then we upgraded and started converting retired school buses and turned them into clinics. And basically, inside you have a doctor's room, a triaging room, and you park these buses at markets. So back home in Uganda and most African countries, you have what the equivalent of like a flea market where a bunch of people gather at a certain day of the week and just get together and merchandise, selling stuff. And then there's a hospital on a bus and serves people. And we serve thousands and thousands of people. And that was my starting point into this whole world of entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's incredible. And the reason I bring that up is one of my favorite sayings, and I'm terrible with names of people who say things. So I just remember what they say, not who said
I'm
it.
Chris.
Nice to meet you. So this could be you. Maybe you said this. But that's the first sign of healing when people are healing is they want to use that pain or whatever happened to them to help somebody else. And even after you've been pulled out and you could have gone to any big firm and make millions of dollars straight out of school, you were at that place where you said none of that would have made sense of the impacts of fulfillment of what you make your life meaningful unless you touched that part of you that was healing or that was hurt at one point. And I'm totally projecting, but I assume that's why, because you never said that. um, and I know the part of my story that I share is I was drawn to psychology just as healing others and taking care of others. But everything I was drawn to is the one thing I hadn't even acknowledged in myself that I needed that healing for until eventually I came to face with it. And then I made it my purpose and calling outwardly. It was always working in the background, but it was for everybody else, not for me. Um, Outwardly, starting Asia, it was then now I'm comfortable enough. I have made space for myself to heal, then I can have space for others to do the same. And so when you created this, um, and then got into this whole entrepreneurship, how did you start making sense of, okay, before we run out of time, one thing I know I want you to touch on, because a lot of people have been asking me for this, and another reason I invited you on is then how you have gotten from that one um, project the first time straight out of school to where you are now with a lot of different ones, and you can talk about them as you go. But walk us through how you went from that guy straight out of school to creating your own path with such purpose and mission and almost I don't know a lot of people who are so convinced about who they are, the way you talk about your work and where you're going, even if it's all different, it all comes back to tying to that one thing. And so people go through life wondering what is my purpose, what's my calling, or not wanting to touch the parts of them that is not the fear you were talking about. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? I'm not certified enough, or then you go to school forever because you want to be that person. How have you overcome or go with it with that fear and step into your purpose? So it's a lot
Yeah.
there, but you can
Oh, it's a
whatever you got out of
handful.
it.
I got you. I got you covered.
All right, we're right here.
Um, let's start with the idea of vulnerability. So, vulnerability for most of us, including myself at the beginning of my work, uh, when vulnerability in you as an individual subjectively looking at yourself, um, you know, it, you look at it as weakness. You kind of like you classify it as weakness. But when you see vulnerability in another person, you classify it as courage. Okay. And yet,
Oh
and
my.
yet, when someone gets vulnerable, that's when you get to see their soul and want to be part of their journey. And you want to support them because you see where it's coming from, why they're passionate about whatever they're passionate about, and why I want to support that person because I know, when my soul and my heart is into something and I can sniff out when I listen to someone and like, I just started a company. I'm like, okay, why? And look, I just want to make a bunch of money. It's like, okay, when things get hard, are you really gonna continue doing this? But if it's coming from another space where you deeply care about the problem you're trying to solve, you are willing to go through all the aches and hardships that it takes to build a thing. But anyway, so I wanted to say something about vulnerability. So whoever is listening to this, be vulnerable, share your true self, share your heart, and people will see you and people get close to you. Because when you don't share, people, there's kind of like a wall that people have to break through. So that's a
Yeah,
good starting
no,
point.
that's a good one because you can't fake that when
You
somebody's
can't.
really in it, or if they're just putting on a show. It doesn't matter how great their product is if you can't feel them or see them. Thank you. Yes. All right.
Yep. It's
Vulnerability.
very, very powerful too. Be vulnerable. Share your true self. The
Show up.
world will welcome you. Show up.
All right.
So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
The second point I want to make is that every single human being on the planet, everything we do, from work to the school and making money, like everything we do goes down to two things: safety and security. That's it. That's
Okay.
all we're looking for. Some, you're in a partnership and your partner cheats on you.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost safety and you've lost security in that person. You lose your job. You've lost safety and you've lost security in that person. Uh, Everything we do, you making money or starting a company to work, you're looking for safety and security. And sometimes the safety and the security is like, oh, I want to feel safe that my parents approve of my choices. Like there's that one, like it's kind of like the same, but they're two words.
Mm.
Safety and security is the whole reason we do what we do. So now, if you ask yourself, why do we work? Why do we work as human beings? It comes down to this. It's the same reason people join gangs. It's the same reason someone would join ISIS. The same reason someone would join KKK is the same reason we work. Only that work is a socially accepted mania. So like it's socially accepted, but we immerse all our life to spend so much time working, but it's not considered a bad thing. But it's some extreme. So sometimes the amount of time we spend doing work. So why do we work? Identity, sense of belonging, sense of security, money, right? Contribution to society,
Mm-hmm.
creativity, social. Those are the reasons we work. So now you ask yourself, whatever you're doing, why are you specifically doing it? What is it about you that, pulls you to do it? So sometimes other people know what they're doing. Like I'm pretty confident and certain on the thing that I want to spend the next decade of my life doing. But there's some people are like, I don't know. I don't know where my next thing is. I'm still trying to figure it out. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the okay. The universe timetable is fine. It is okay. So long as you're actually searching. So where do you look? Where are those pockets? Where do you look to try to find that thing within you?
Yeah.
There are three or four places. Tragedies. Tragedy, that's my point where I come from. That's where my source of energy,
Mm-hmm.
where I've lost so much and so many people physically who have left this world, and that the pain of me wanting to do something about the injustice that made them go too early is where I get my energy to do what I do and to try to change that injustice. but you may not have the same story as me. So your life may be totally different. It may not have the same tragedies as me. Now you look at the second point, and that is talent. What are you really good at? Like the thing that you're good at and you're really passionate and you just do it for fun. Like I love music. I listen to music and it makes me very happy. I'll be so happy to make money while doing something with music, maybe playing it or singing it, whatever. So you find within the thing you're so passionate about, you just try to figure out how you get paid to do it. And then the number three thing or source of trying to figure out like what is the thing that I could work on or I could care about that much are the annoyances, the things that piss you off.
Okay.
Yes,
Have one.
the things that piss you off is a really good source of inspiration to want to change it. I have a friend who started a company that I invested in. He made an alarm, a flying alarm. He had these regular alarms, like it would go off and then he'll tap and it snoozes, and then he tap and snooze and then he falls asleep. So he decided to create one that's like a drone. As soon as it goes off, it just drives and runs around the room and just smacks into things until he has to wake up and turn it off.
I want that. Where do you get that one?
You have to jump out of your bed to turn it off.
Go find it.
You can find it online, yes. But the
Okay.
point is this: it's that a thing that pisses you off is a
Mhm.
really good source of inspiration to find something you can do to change that injustice, quote unquote. And then the last thing is, I would say, about where to tap into to find your thing
Mhm.
is experiences. Traveling,
Mm.
having different experiences, get out of your comfort zone. If you grew up in America, travel to South America. It's very uncomfortable maybe at the beginning because it's a new experience. You've never been, you're scared, but you go out there and you meet the people and see how wonderful they are and you see how they live their life and you come back a changed person. Travel to Africa, travel to Asia, and you come back a changed person. So, anyways, those are kind of like the four spaces I would look if I'm like searching for my reason of existence.
Wow. That's absolutely powerful. And I hope you all are taking notes. I mean, this will stay up here and I know more people will come on, but that's really great. In a couple of those that you've mentioned, I know that's where I've found my way forward. The injustices and the annoyances of those injustices, really, and my tragedies. Now, for those who are thinking, okay, that's great. That's cute. But I have bills. I don't have time to follow my passion, so to speak, or follow the talents. Like you said, you have this love for music, but that's not where your day to day your paycheck comes from, right? Because that's not where life has led you, or one or the other. So a lot of people have this passion for something, but bills gotta get paid, kids gotta get fed, right? And they still have to hustle. And so then either sometimes that is also a fear that's feeding into this, right? So I also see that part of it. What would you say to those people? How can you both follow that fire within you while staying clear on what is. And by the way, anybody who's listening and has questions for Chris, please throw them in the comments. I didn't say that earlier. Um, and if not, we'll find a way to get your answers, your questions answered. What 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 can you say to that person who is still saying, I can't, I don't have the luxury to follow any of the things you mentioned because I gotta put food on the table.
Yeah, so understanding who you are is very important.
Mhm.
um, there are, I would say, four types of people in this world. And the first type of person is the money driven person who is willing to do anything and everything, whether ethical or not, to get the money. Okay. Those people, when they're successful, if they're successful, They make it to the top, and the top is cold. It's cold and lonely because they have the richness of resources, but poverty of the purpose, the reason they needed the money in the first place.
Mm.
And then there's the people who are driven by purpose. Those are the ones who are like the teachers, the musicians, the social workers, the people who passionately care about the world and they want to see the world change. They're so rich with the purpose, but they have poverty of resources because they focus so much on the purpose, but they don't focus on how they're going to be able to finance themselves and finance the thing they deeply care about. And actually, eventually, most of them burn out and they fall out of the system because they were driven so much by the passion and the
Mm.
purpose and the thing they want to change, but they didn't really understand how the big machine works. That brings me to the third type of person. So the third type of person is a person who was raised in a traditional society where you're told by your parents and everyone else around you that go to school, when you're done, get a job, when you're done, buy a house, get married, have children, die. So very straightforward, and it's a
Wow.
lot of people, okay? And that type of person, and they're comfortable in that space. It's very important. Like you're comfortable to just wake up and go work for some person and come home and take care of your kids. That's fine. And that's your life.
Mm-hmm.
So those individuals, so long as you're very happy where you are, that is fine. But if you're not happy to the space where you are and you're just doing one thing over here for the money and you have another thing where you want to be, where you would be happy to be, then there needs to be some internal work because what's driving you now is mostly fear, not so you're basically existing and you're not living.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's very easy to exist because the machine is designed around. So there's a big machine, I call it pimp.
Here comes the engineer. All right.
There's a big machine,
Uh-huh.
it's called pimp is an acronym. It stands for power,
Okay.
influence, money, and politics. There are very few people who have pimp, and their whole goal is like a chase game. They have to like maneuver the lever, and everyone else down here is working for the machine. Okay,
Mm.
so you're either part of the machine or you're not, and you just keep feeding the machine, and the machine will just keep using your resources as much as it can. So the laws that are getting passed, the taxes and the resources, and the inequity and all that stuff is happening because you're just kind of making the other person richer and richer, and you can barely pay your rent. You
Jeff
know.
Bezos, right? We're all making him richer.
So
Okay.
anyway, so being able to understand how the machine works and realize that all those people, most of them didn't even finish high school. So it's not about the education. It's about someone believing that they can do it and they pursue it and they go for it. Like a lot of us who don't come from the resources side are like, oh, I have an uncle who can write me a check for $10,000 so I can start a company. Um, you have to get out of that mindset because it's designed to keep you there. It's designed by design. This person who has the money wants you to work for them because someone has to deliver the Amazon boxes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyways, I was like a jib jabbling going around, but
No.
I hope I tried to explain it that there is a machine that you gotta think clearly whether the machine is working for you or you're working for it. If you're not on the table, you're on the menu.
That's right. And some people are fine being on the menu. a- And if you're fine, as long as you're happy where you are, do you.
Yep,
And if you're
just
not
do you.
happy, figure out how to not be
Change
the
it.
machine and be the machine for your own life.
Change
Follow
it.
it. Follow it. Right.
Yep.
So somebody has a question, and then I have two questions after that, and then we'll wrap it up. How do you prevent others from drowning you?
Oh, uh-huh.
Ah. You were, yes. How?
It's a tough one.
Mm,
So I can share what I did with my family. So I started a family cooperative, um, and it all kind of was inspired by every single minute my phone going off because so and so's kid is sick and so and so is just broke a leg and you're the only family member who lives in America. Of course you have money. Money grows on trees in America. Please, send the money. So I had to figure out a system, and what I tried to do is to how do I get these people to be also stakeholders as opposed to just kind of like be on the receiving end, just kind of wanting to get money and just go and then ask again and go.
Mm-hmm.
So I created a cooperative, a family cooperative. It's so cool. I think anyone who has relatives outside of the US should try this out. It's pretty cool. Um, I incentivized all my family members to kind of get into a family group, like a savings group, that whatever you save, and you have to save it, and you have to keep it in the bank account for 12 months. At the end of the 12 months, I'll double it. So I had initially it was like 40 people, and then the number kept growing. But the point is this: it kind of forces people to actually look at their resources and know that at the end of the year, these resources are going to double. And man, I've seen people's lives getting transformed because people are buying land, they're building houses, they're buying cars, and all the things they wouldn't have done otherwise. And the reason that's important is because a lot of people are in poverty, and it's kind of like from work to table to mouth, work to table to mouth. There isn't the system for savings. Most cultures in developing countries, especially on our continent, don't have the savings culture because they don't have enough to save.
Right.
So you give an incentive to save, and then eventually it's kind of use those resources to lift themselves out, and then they kind of start a little business or whatever, and then after that, they won't be calling you after that. So two interesting things, phenomena that kind of came out of that. The first one is people, your own relatives, wanting to rip you off. So let me tell you. So the idea was you save and then we will double it at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Got it? Got it. Okay. So people, like someone, let's say, will save $10, $10, $10 for 11 months. And then in December, for some reason, they find $20,000 that they want to put into the account, and then gets doubled. they share they share the profit with the person they borrowed the money from. And then and yet you're trying to do a good thing and lift them out of poverty. So when I landed on that trick, I decided to hold on to the money for another 12 months, and they stopped doing it.
That is clever. I never would have thought of that.
Oh yeah, no, you have like you can't blame them. Like a lot of people are desperate, so they kind of come up with a lot of these tricks to try to make it big quickly. And there's no such a thing as quick. You have to work. You have to work hard.
Right.
Anything worth having, you have to work for it. But the one positive thing that came out of that was people have to meet every month to save. And now the family bond has become so strong that when there is a wedding, there is a burial, there is a need for a project, or someone is sick, like people are helping each other because they're not part of this fabric that's bringing them together every month, and people checking in on each other, how well and bad they are doing. And they also don't want bad apples because they're going to make them lose the opportunity from this end. So they try to straighten them each other out so that I don't get mad. Anyways, but it has been a very interesting phenomenon. I would encourage people to try it.
I'm on that. And somebody asked, so what happens if they have nothing to save?
When they have nothing to save, then I put in a chip in for each individual who doesn't have what to save into the savings group, and then at the end of the year they also harvest something. And then the idea is that something needs to start you a business. It's not something just going to go and just spend. So
Christmas.
the question is, yeah, you're not going to spend on Christmas. You start a business, and then I monitor, are you saving the next month and the next month? And if you tell me you're not going to save, then it's on you, man. I've tried.
I love that. Teaching them how to fish versus giving. Oh, all right. I think we're stealing your idea on that one for our family.
Do it, try to tell me. I want to hear all the stories. Of course, people are trying to trick you too.
I know that is wow. Survival is real. Okay, so do you have a little extra like 20 minutes? Because I see a couple really good questions.
Let's do it.
Good. So Rachel's asking, and Rachel gets our questions from other sources. So in the beginning, your fear to disappoint or personal ego seemed to be your biggest motivators in your journey to success. What would you say is your biggest motivator right now?
So, and Tabitha, you know this. I am very big on trying to find your guiding stars, your north star, the reason why you're here, the reason you are alive. And for me, I have defined that. I've done a lot of internal work to define the reason why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal statement and my personal purpose is this: to make a difference in one person's life a day. Just one.
Mm.
Every day I wake up, I ask myself, did I do that? How do I quantify it? I don't go around with a notepad. I'm like, oh, I did 10 today or 15 the other day. It's all about, I can do it through conversation like we're having right now. I could do
Mhm.
it through a product or service that I create. Or could do through speaking engagements. Like I could stand in a room full of 400 people, whatever, or 4,000 people. It doesn't matter. Um, so long as personally I feel like it made a difference in someone else's life, I feel good. I feel like, you know what, maybe I'm worth living, you know? So that's the motivator: make a difference in another person's life and the inequality dynamic in this world. That's what's driving me today.
And that's your personal mission. So Chris has an
I think you're
actual.
frozen or I'm frozen.
Uh oh, that's not good. Am I back? Because I see you.
Hello?
Yep, I can
Can't
still
hear
hear you.
you.
Oh, great. Um, how about now, Chris? Can you see the chat room? Oh no. So I think it was Chris freezing on his end. If you all can, yep, he disappeared. You all can still hear me? If you all can hear me, please somebody let me know that you can. As we are maybe waiting for him to jump right back in. And there he comes. Okay.
For some reason I got cut off.
It was you. You froze. Well, you didn't freeze on my end, but then you disappeared. So
Okay.
something with you.
Are we done or
No,
we
you have
more
a couple of
questions?
questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's see. You're trying to run away.
Was the last one come through?
No, the last one was from your experience. Well, the last one from the chat room. Then I have my own.
Okay.
But mine will be short. It'll be the wrap up ones.
No, I'm not in any rush. We can chat, but I
Okay.
want to make sure the questions are, answered.
Okay, good. I thought that was your way of saying, "Oh, can't hear you. Sorry, we're done now."
Oh, oh man, I'm an African, but man,
I'm
I want
kidding.
to say goodbye.
Right, at least 10 minutes of goodbye.
Yeah,
So, from your experience, what would you say is the hardest thing about sharing your story and using it to motivate others?
the hardest thing
Yeah.
is reliving it.
Mm.
Yeah, every time you tell it, you got to go back to that place, and some of those thorns were very painful,
Yeah.
but you have to relive it. But if it's for good cause you just gotta do it.
So how do you make it through that? Because I think that's the almost the barrier or the I can't think. Okay, it's all right. Anyway, that's what happens when sometimes our work begins with our story. That even when you've made it to a different space, it always comes back to your story or to how you started. Um, so how do you make sure, or how what have you put in place in your work to not continually relive it if you have to tell it? Do you tell it differently, or have you put some strategies and tools in place that it doesn't take you there every time?
It's hard. For some reason, I'm getting an echo. Is that me or you?
It's everything is you.
It's all me.
Everything is you. We're good.
Man, I'm very failing on this thing. But yeah, no, it's tough. It is tough. But people invest in people,
Mm,
and in order to invest in you, people need to understand who you are, and it's part of your story. Every
mm,
single day is a page in your story. You can try to avoid it. You can try to run away from it, but it's part
mhm.
of you. And you
Right.
can't tell your story today without kind of looking back where you're coming from. And even when you skip that part, people are always feeling like there's a missing piece. Like, so, but how did you even come to America?
Yeah.
And then you can't, give bits and pieces of it. So I've created some sort of like safeguards for myself to protect the emotional toll it takes to kind of go through this process over and over again. And it's also important to understand that your story is interesting and people try to take advantage of that. The whole kind of like, poverty porn kind of mindset where people are like, you know, he's, some kid I funded from Africa and he was an orphan. And because of me, he's whatever he is right now. So, pat me on the back, friends. So you're gonna run into that a lot. But if you're on a mission and you understand why you're doing what you're doing, it's part of it comes with the territory.
Mm, that is so key. And as you were saying that, I remember something you mentioned. I think you said this. I can't remember when. See, I have a whole book of Chris's quotes. You've been inspiring me. Um, Another part of that is when you have this story and it's powerful and you've used it to make a difference and to change people in situations. A lot of people, in addition to the, you know, I need credit for what Chris has done, is also then you get bombarded with people wanting to not necessarily use you, but right, like they want your story, they want you to show up so they can make a point in some way, shape, or form, or requests to speak, or requests to do all kinds of things that usually don't either they don't even pay you for what you're worth. Um, and so something you said that started guiding me right away is realizing, am I saying yes to the person, or am I saying yes to the mission or to the purpose or something along those lines?
Yeah.
Where I get to now step back before just saying yes because I feel like I have to keep being on this stage because ABCD, by saying, is this aligned? So that's the other piece of having your purpose so clear in your mission, that then, because now we know Chris's mission is at least to touch one life a day, and he gets to choose how that happens. So if he feels like he's being asked to go feed the machine that doesn't change a single life, that's clear that his values or the what he's being called to do is not aligned with his mission. So there's no need for a conversation. Says, thanks for thinking of me, we're good. And that's another pitfall that I find myself feeling like, how can I say no? They want to da, 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 or this is what I need.
It's hard. It's hard. No, so when you're getting started in kind of like your mission work, There's a lot of people want to take advantage of you because they know for sure you are early on in your journey, that you need them to be able to kind of have more content and more visibility so you can move forward. So they want to, they will call you to a million directions, and it's all free labor because they know you need their platform.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes on, this is my favorite. When someone asks for my time, I send them my calendar, how to make an appointment. And on my calendar, bottom of my calendar, there is a button that says, "What's your budget?" It's very, very subtle, but it's also there's an asterisk to it that you can't move forward to making the appointment unless you put something in. The trick is you can put in zero, so and you get past it. But but that kind of makes people to stop and pause and understand that you've worked really hard. You went to school, you've been building your brand, and you've worked really hard to be where you are, and it hasn't been free, and people should not take you for granted. So even happened last week. Some group wanted me to be a panelist on some judging some investment they were doing into African startups. Um, and I was like, "How much you charge?" They're like, "But you got all the experience, and you should, we're gonna invest on the content." I'm like, "That's great, but I also have a family I have to feed her." And then I kind of said thank you, but no thanks, and they walked away. And 2 days later, they came back and they gave me a number, and they're like, "We really want you." So understanding that you have value and understanding what you
Yes.
have, people want it, and not budging and not letting pressure pull you, like, "Well, but I really need to be on CNN." Yeah, it's cool to be on CNN, but how much CNN is paying? Because CNN is making money for having you on there. So you ask them, "What is your budget?" And if they say, "We don't have a budget, you want to come for free or not?" and you say no, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, they lost, you lost, and it's fine. You still remain the same person you are. But it takes a certain level of confidence and understanding your worth and your value to say no to CNN. Like right now, I don't need another, resume point, like a stamp that, "Oh, I was in this newspaper, or I was in this." So I want to acknowledge my privilege at this
Mm-hmm.
point that I probably didn't have early on in my career. But the more you can put it in your head that you have value, and whatever you have to offer, people are willing to pay for it, and they would pay it if you ask for it, and not feel shy or embarrassed to say, "You've invited me to speak, whatever. Okay, I'll be available. There's some spot on the calendar that I can move things around just for you. But what is your budget?"
And that's been a big learning curve for me. And I think I'm glad we came to that point, because a lot of us, especially from the African context, we're taught to not think that way in monetary terms, or to feel like, oh, how can I, oh, little me, or humble. We confuse humility with expertise, right? Like, they're obviously
Humility with exploitation.
exploitation. Thank you. And so
Yeah.
they're obviously asking you for a reason. You have something to offer. And this one woman, her name is Sharita. She's an agent for all these speakers in the sports world. And she's a good friend of one of my moms. And I'm talking to her about this speaking engagement that had come my way, and I don't know how to do those things. I'm like, "What do you have? Whatever I can offer, I'm available." And I'm doing that whole Rwandan thing. And so I'm talking to her about whether or not, because it's a big conference, so I know they have the money, they have the budget. And I'm like, "Well, I know it's not going to be as big as what you're usually working with, but I just would want a professional to be on the other side." And I'm like, "I'll just ask you for help when those big ones come through." And she's like, "So if they're not worth my time, why are they worth your time?" And that just like, oh, you're right. Why do I think your time is, has more value than mine? And that changed how I look at things. So a lot of us as immigrants or from the really in women or anybody, there's this messaging of you have to be at a certain level to be worth something. But anytime somebody needs your service, it's obviously because only you can do it. That's why they're coming to you. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So two questions in your journey, and because it's the baton talk, part of this is unlearning these messages that we have received along the way. What are some of the things as you are growing, both personally, spiritually, and professionally? That some things you look back and or right now you're like, wow, that was a lie, or that no longer serves me. Maybe it did one time, kind of like the survival piece. Anything that comes to mind that you've had to unlearn and either um, and do it differently now, that you can think of.
Yeah, no, I would say, maybe like the way I view spirituality.
Mm.
Um, growing up in Uganda, obviously you're familiar. There's very specific religions that are kind of the most prominent and have majority of the population, and then everything else is either wrong or doesn't exist. And you kind of like put in that tunnel vision, and then you come to America and there's a gazillion religions and there's people with no religion. And then you're lost. You're like, oh my God, what do I believe? To try to find
Mhm.
yourself, and understand what's your spiritual journey. Like I said, all of us need faith. And we need something to believe in, something bigger than ourselves, because some person will come and shoot up a kindergarten class, a bunch of kids, and kill them, and you start to question. Maybe you're around witnessing it, or you read about it in the news, or even one of the kids is your kid, and you ask yourself the why question, and you can't turn a book, you can't Google, you can't find a place where to find answers for something horrific like that. But you need some sort of like an outer source that's larger than yourself to kind of lean on and try to think maybe there's a larger and bigger purpose for whatever this awful thing just happened. And we all need that, because life is going to fail you. You're going to lose footing, and everything man made is going to fail you. And you need to kind of find a place where to find that energy that's outside of you. So I had to unlearn a lot about what's been taught about faith and spirituality.
Yes, me too. Pastor's kid. And I'm like, all right, time to figure it out for myself.
Oh yeah,
That's a big one. And I'm
yeah.
hoping to have a conversation around that on here.
Oh yeah, oh
That'll
yeah. I
be
have. I
interesting.
actually have a whole conversation. Now we can talk offline. You and I. Like it really came to me
Yes.
together. I was on a bus in Nepal with a Buddhist monk, and he's the one who brought it home for me. So we will talk more about it one day.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
plan because I'm down that road. And I know a lot of people in my church who also are like, okay, what is this? All right. And then my last question. Oh, I see another question on here before I ask my last one. Sorry.
Oh,
Uh,
good. We're here.
right? Where are we going? It's COVID. Um, so curious to know one thing you do to guard your heart when speaking live and in front of people in order to fight against the emotional toll of it. So what I guess in the moment when you're speaking live, how what do you anything you do in the moment to
Oh,
guard your heart
speaking.
from the stories? I think this is
Uh,
a follow up from the previous
the
question
previous
before we
question.
lost you. Yeah.
No, I thought like, what did you do to kind of get comfortable with the stage? I was about to say comedy. No, actually, that's stand-up comedy is awesome. Like you go out there and you do like every city has open mics. You go and you sign up and you get
You've
on
done
those
it?
stage. Oh yeah, and you make fun of yourself. You get very uncomfortable, and there's no any other stage that you'll feel more uncomfortable than that stage. It's like walking around when some people go for a workout and they wear weights and
Mm.
walk, and when they're done, they take the weights off and they feel lighter. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like you go to a comedy stage, a lot of people make you feel very uncomfortable, and then everything else pales in comparison after
Oh,
that.
Oh no, I'm good. That sounds like so fun. You cannot pay me enough to do that. I go stand in front of millions. I will,
that was that
talent
was
for
got
you.
that's what got me to kind of be comfortable with large stages. Yeah, no, how to guard yourself. You need to learn how to separate yourself from the mission and the entity. It's very important for so many reasons. So you could apply for a grant, or you apply for funding, or venture capital, whatever the things that you want to get for your mission, and then you get turned away. If you are taking it personal, like you're gonna get turned away 99 times, and then there'll be one that says yes. If every time 99 times you're taking it personal, like people are rejecting you,
Yeah.
it becomes really hard to sustain that in the long run. So being able to separate yourself, you are a representative of a mission. And when you apply for a grant, or apply for funding, or apply for something, or you invite someone to speak on your podcast, whatever, and they didn't show up, you say they did not align well with the mission, but you're kind of the representative who is representing the mission. So you kind of remove yourself a little bit. It's very important for emotional protection. So I would say that's the
Yes.
way to look at it.
Oh, that's huge because that also, I think, can explain what prevents a lot of people from stepping into their purpose, even when they're so clear. I have a friend who has this beautiful, I won't say what they are, but just she creates these beautiful pieces, but she's not stepping out to share the art. And I mean, I've seen her work. I would buy each and every one of them. But that piece of, if somebody doesn't like it, we usually interpret that that's me they are not liking. That's me they're rejecting.
Yeah.
And that prevents a lot of people from pursuing or stepping into. And for me, if I don't show up with all of me, I mean, I'm such a crier. Ever since I started doing personal work, anytime I get into my story, somehow I get emotional. And um, so sometimes that vulnerability piece you're talking about is important, um, but doing it in a way that, what you're saying, that protection piece of whatever happens, this is, it's not about me, it's bigger than I. And I'm like, I'm just the representative. So if
You're a
there's that,
representative.
yes, the podcast you've been wanting to try to start, if it's that business coaching, whatever, anybody who's not able to get on board, they're just not aligning, or it's not the right thing for them.
Yeah, and the thing I find, the analogy that works well with rejection is like you think about rejection as kind of like the way the dating world works,
Oh God.
and it's serious. So you see someone you are maybe attracted to, and for some reason you garner all the courage and you walk up to them and you ask them out, and they tell you no. Now you can step back and look at that no. The no could be the way you approach them, but more often than not, they one, they don't find you attractive. Two, they don't, they're not in the dating scene. Maybe they have someone else. They are not. They just out there to have a beer by themselves. They don't want anyone to talk to them. So there are a thousand reasons why you receive that no. And the one thing we all run out, like, go straight to, that I'm not pretty enough.
Mm.
I'm not good enough. That's why I got rejected. And that's just one thing out of the other million things that this specific person did not want to go out with you. So it's the same way. Like you're trying to pursue a mission, you approach a person, and they're going to tell you no. Maybe it's not the right timing. Maybe they're on a vacation. Maybe your thing is not interesting them. And that should be fine. It's your mission, not theirs. So being able to look at yourself as a representative as opposed to take everything personal is very, very important to have that muscle to be able to go back and forth and not break.
Yes. And to link that to a previous lesson we've had on here of core beliefs, like when we had the conversation around self-esteem. So sometimes it's about how you view yourself that you're projecting on that person. So if your inner message is I'm not pretty enough, oh I'm not, whatever your messaging is, and then I approach the person and they say no, they didn't say anything else. Whatever you tell yourself why that no is should be uh, an indication of how you are talking to yourself or how you view yourself, because usually all the rejections don't have a reason attached, but we attach the reason based on the stories we tell ourselves. So that's a really good point. Okay, so if no more questions I see in the chat room, my last question. You have a son who's, oh my gosh, just graduated. Um, what is the one thing that you want to pass on, and the one thing that you pray to God you don't pass on?
Wow, that's a tough one.
This is your baton. What is the one thing you intentionally want to pass on to him, and one thing you pray to God he doesn't get?
Hmm. What do I not want to pass on?
Hmm.
Um, Maybe not go through the same pain that I've gone through. So I learned a lot. I have it has made me the person I am, but probably would not want him to go through that. So that's the one thing I probably don't want to pass on. The one thing I want to pass on is that I want him to know that the stories of the world are always told in the lens of the victor. If slavery books were written by the slaves, they would be told in different books. So victors always write this story, and it's always in their lens, and it's always in favor of them. So just I want to pass on to him to write his own story and not let society put him in a box and places where he needs to be, because those stories have a lot of connotations that come from someone else's perspective, not him being true to himself. That sounds like a very long answer, but
No, that was
write your story.
perfect and beautiful. So
Yeah.
to bring it all together from what I've learned, and I know you all have learned a lot of different, there's so many good nuggets and so many gems in here. Write your own story, always follow the light. Find that crack in the darkness and follow the light. Be vulnerable. Build your own machine. Don't feed other people's machines. You will build
Yeah.
your own. Right?
and and I also, whoever is listening, I've come to kind of like distill the whole reason. Like, all of us need a meaning, need a reason, need a purpose why we're here. Like, you
Mm.
go through life and you ask yourself, why am I alive? So I put it down into 4 points, and I will end with this. 4 points. The reason you need, like, the I call them the pillars of feeling like your life has meaning and your life matters. Okay? 4 pillars. And you have to feed them, and you had to concurrently and intentionally feed them as you go about your life. Otherwise, you will lose your footing. You'll feel like lost, like your life is meaningless. And a lot of people we've seen, super, ultra celebrities who have everything from the outside, but they take their own life. And the question is, what was missing there? From my vantage point, it felt like they had everything. So 4 pillars. Always remember this. Number one, it's your health.
Mm.
If your health is not functioning, nothing else works. So you can see that with right now with COVID, the whole world is shut down because the world health is not functioning right. So taking care of your health is very, very important. And a lot of people focus on everything else. They work their tails off and they destroy their health. They're eating terribly. They're not exercising. And they eventually get to a point where they have resources they fought very hard to get. And then that resource, those money pay for their health care.
No. Hmm.
Okay. So health, mental, physical, and spiritual, very important. Just take care of your health. Very, very important. Everything else follows after that.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is good relationships, family, friends, people you care about. Water it, water that source of energy. It's very important. Like we tend to forget, we get to a certain point and just forget and kind of get lost into ourselves, especially in this very individualistic culture, which is all about pursuing things, but you forget your culture. For us who grew up in Africa or have some roots or had like the luxury of being around a community where your uncle is over there and your auntie is over there, you come here, you kind of feel isolated and alone and lost. And isolation and loneliness have become public health crisis right now
Yeah.
because we are losing that component of
Mm-hmm.
good relationships. So there's a lot of connectivity, but not a whole lot of connection. So,
Mm.
anyways,
Tweetable moment.
good, good relationships, very important. Number three, financial security. If you don't have resources to take care of yourself and you not feel secure, then your health suffers, your relationships suffer, so everything is kind of thrown off balance. So you need to think about financial security as a very important pillar in you having a meaningful life, quote unquote. And once you feel like your life has meaning, then actually as a consequence, you're happy. So there's a lot of people who are unhappy in pursuit of happiness. They think happiness is something I go over there and catch, and they got it. But the reason you feel happy now is because you were unhappy before now. So happiness is a thing that kind of moves. So you kind of pursue it, you get over there and it moves. You pursue it, you go over there and it moves. But if you focus on having a meaningful life as a consequence, then you're happy. So as you can see, the three things: health, relationships, and resources, money, financial security, whatever you want to call it, are all about me, 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 me. It's all about you. But then you need something that's outside of you, and that is purpose. Like, what is something that you're doing for someone else that's not you? You could focus on you and do everything. Eventually, you feel short. You feel like you have everything, but you're still empty. There's a lot of energy to be received from contributing to a larger picture. It could be people, it could be trees, it could be oceans, it could be, hey, cats and dogs. People do that. But something that's outside of you and is larger than yourself. So, very important. Four pillars. You keep that in mind. Everything you're pursuing, you ask yourself, how am I feeding any of my pillars? Is it my health? Is it my relationships? Is it my resources? Is it my purpose? What is it? And you concurrently cultivate them and you'll never be done. You're
Mm.
always feeding it. And if you're not careful, if you don't really pursue this, you could just exist through life and not live. And the
Not
whole
live.
goal is for you to live and not just exist. And your attitude in your head determines your altitude, how high you can go. So thank you.
Ooh. All right. That's that is off snap. Thank you. I think that just summarized it really well for us. So, family, that's our journaling moment. We always have something to journal about at the end of this show. Think through your four pillars. How are you taking care of your health, your relationships? Okay, this is a moment of whether or not I was paying attention. I'm trying to remember all four. Purpose, health,
Financial
resources.
security.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your finances. So they all
Yeah.
go together, and there's your
And if
journaling
one,
moment.
one of them, if you lose one of them, you feel you're off balance.
You're always
Okay,
off balance.
one of them throws the other ones off too.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
health includes mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, could be part of mental, all of it. So let's take this week to really dig deep and think about how we're doing that. And all of them have to be in balance in order for us to live and not just exist. Wow. Thank you, Chris. So we are the work. We're going to continue doing the work together. I really, really appreciate your time. I know there's plenty to do. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here to share with us your wisdom. And I mean, so many things that we have learned from this. So truly appreciate you, brother. And we will see you, everybody else, next week, Thursday, as we do our work, because we all are the work. I am the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep shining.
You inspired me. I'm
Thank
just
you.
figuring it out, but I just said I'm gonna jump in. It's my purpose. So
Make it happen.
thank you for
All
your
right. Be well.
inspiration. All right, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for joining. Please share, subscribe, and we're gonna do a couple more of these after our 10th. We'll take a little break and try to. So please send me your feedback. Um, I'm understanding that now YouTube is more for most people watch after. So thinking through how to incorporate those who want to do their live. I'm figuring it all out, but I thank you for coming along as we all grow together, heal together, and I hope you're doing those journals. And so I will see you here again next week, 7 p.m. every Thursday. Baton Talk. Love you all. Do the work so our children don't have to. Have a good one.